Well, here we are in the kingdom of plastic cars. The ruler here, the savior, and just a good person. Andre, how do you not know who that is? There will be a link to him. Oh, no, that's a royal gift. When I first saw it in the 90s, I wanted it so badly. Then a friend let me take it for a spin. I broke it. Something happened with the gears, they skipped or something. It's actually really small, but in my memories, it was a Jeep. But in reality, it's a milestone in our history. Our hearts demanded change, and change began even in places where the state had absolute control. And usually, it was enthusiasts who started it all. Some built cars themselves, like Heinhoff and Parfenoff, but there were others too. And others also wanted to fill our market with affordable cars. That was their second priority. But first and foremost, they wanted to try to save their own enterprises. However, before that, they made what seemed like a logical but rather ill-considered move. The Autocam Association, which was founded in 1989 and consisted of 37 enterprises, decided to get involved in screwdriver assembly of foreign cars. I won't list all the enterprises, but should I focus on a few things? I should. Despite the fact that the Elabuga City Executive Committee became one of the shareholders and was the one to register the enterprise in Elabuga, it left a project. The headquarters of the Autocam Association was located in Naberezhnye Chelny, and initially they planned to assemble the cars at the Mendelevsk branch, which was named Toima, as well as at the Teza plant in Shuya. There were also plans to involve the Kirov plant in Leningrad in the production. A few words about Autocam. The government stopped funding many industries. Remember, cost accounting? So the companies that joined the association planned to help in whatever way they could. Some would contribute production capacity, some would provide certain services, some would offer money, and others would just give advice. Everyone would chip in whatever they could. A foreign car. What you see in front of you was called the Rickman Ranger in England. And essentially it was a kit car. In other words, a build-it-yourself car. Rickman produced the frame and the fiberglass body. And the running gear was supposed to be from a Ford Escort, and it didn't matter whether it was new or salvaged from a junkyard. If you think this model looks like a Suzuki Samurai, you're not mistaken. It really does look similar. But in England, nobody cared about that, especially since the designs had nothing in common. On the contrary, Soviet entrepreneurs found it inspiring. The presentation took place on May 27, 1991 at the Toima assembly plant. Assembly was set up in Tatarstan, while the bodies were riveted elsewhere in Perm. There were grand plans for production, but then a nationwide disaster struck. Just a few months after the ceremonial launch of the cars into production, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics collapsed. At that point, it probably would have made sense to stop, especially since the British, to put it mildly, bailed out. Later, they would be bankrupted by court order, but that would come later. For now, the car had to be produced, especially since the design was simple, and Soviet engineers were talented. They copied the bodies completely and quietly started production. So, what is the main part of the construction? The frame, welded and made from profiles. The roof frame and rear panel reinforcements are mounted onto the frame, all the elements. The bodies were made of fiberglass. Fortunately, making molds for them was not particularly difficult. Fiberglass, there were high hopes for it in the automotive industry. It was called the material of the future, but for objective reasons, it never became one. Fiberglass is prone to cracking. Wherever it is attached to metal, it falls apart, it's difficult to repair, and it doesn't handle cold weather well. And painting it is problematic too. But it doesn't matter. All these issues with fiberglass only came up during use, later on. Right now, we had to improvise and do everything ourselves. The body essentially consists of two main halves. The front part, which combines the front panel, engine compartment, front fenders, and then the rear part of the car, the cargo passenger module. The British produced several different body types at once. The Space Ranger was extended, open at the top. There were even motorhomes and, most amusingly, an almost sporty coupe. Also, the resin was mixed before molding, so those bodies didn't need to be painted. But ours did need to be painted. And besides, we chose just one basic body type. Things were going pretty well with the suspension in our country. There were models with McPherson struts, but the more advanced ones, like the 8 and the Moskvich 41, were front-wheel drive models. But the Autocam Association got lucky. There was an evil in Russia. The IZh Oda, originally conceived as the front-wheel drive car, but released in a humiliated rear-wheel drive version. It was this car that donated its parts to Autokam. The Oda struts are right here in the front. The upper mounts, which is important, and the side members are integrated with the frame as a single unit. The design is quite sturdy, and the front brakes are disc brakes. The rear axle was also transplanted from the Orbit. I almost forgot to mention, the Ranger was also a single-drive leaf-spring jalopy. By the way, there were two models, the Autocam 3101 and the Autocam 2160. What's the difference? A bit of intrigue. I'm holding a pause and just a moment. Hold on. And different engines, but all from Moskvich. We have the 2160, which means a 1.5 liter with 72 horsepower. There's no point in talking about the unit. A gasoline engine produced by the UFA Aviation Engine Plant. It was produced from 1967 to 2001. It was installed on MZMA car models, later AZLK, starting with the Moskvich 412, as well as on cars from the Izhevsk automobile plant. Overall, it's a pretty good engine, if you take care of it and treat it well. By the way, the bull bar in front, this steel structure with the spare tire mount, and the roof rack made from water pipes, all of that came standard, just like on the Sea Ranger. The trunk is there, thank goodness. Very respectable 150 units of space. But if you easily fold down the rear seats, which are designed for convenience, then the cargo capacity truly becomes quite impressive. It gets pretty good, especially if you are fully aware of and understand the precise dimensions of the car, allowing you to maximize its utility for various hauling needs. Length, 3,430 millimeters. Width, 1,550 millimeters. Height, 1,670 millimeters. So, you get the idea of the car's dimensions, right? I mean, it's spacious, damn it. The interior is its own kingdom. Everything here is painfully familiar. There's a bit of Moskvich, a bit of jiggly, a bit of faux leather, and fiberboard. Simplicity in everything. But if you compare it to cars from that era or Nivas, 99S6s a la Rus, Okas, God forgive me, it's pretty much the same here. Or maybe even more interesting, yeah, it's tight as hell back here. There are all sorts of little shelves. And again, the design is a diesel sticker. Someone wanted a diesel but could only afford the sticker. Cup holders, the steering wheel is somehow off to the side, but whatever. And if you truly think the English prototype was more refined, then you are very much mistaken. On the move, it's something else. It's pointless to compare the Autocam's behavior to the models we're familiar with. It seems the same, but it's not. Is the Moskvich engine enough? Well, how should I put it? The car doesn't even weigh a ton, so at moderate speeds it pulls pretty well, you just have to rev it. But with no load, the leaf spring rear end bounces like crazy. And according to memories, getting stuck in the snow with the Autocam in winter is as easy as pie. If you drive calmly, overall the car handles pretty well. Rack and pinion, McPherson. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm driving a homemade car. If I were actually driving a homemade or a small batch car, I'd treat it accordingly. I would treat it differently, forgive some of the minor quirks. But here, after all, I'm driving a production car. And it's cramped, loud, and kind of bumpy. And it only has a 4-speed gearbox from IZh. This car is clearly lacking in that regard. I'm deliberately not delving into the commodity and trade relations between Autocam's shareholders. I'm not talking about the relocation of production from one place to another. This won't affect anything. It'll only make things more confusing. There's just one thing I'd like to point out. People fought for the idea of producing the Autocam and improving its design until the very end. They even developed a 5-door body. One more remark about our English partners. They were paid for 1,000 car kits, but only 50 actually arrived. In short, the Brits ripped off the motherland for $4.5 million. No, of course, credit where it's due to the British justice system. Alex Miles was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. But he never returned the money, and also those parts, the suspension, the engine were there. But they were really used. In short, well done, Brits. As I said, Autocam tried to keep going on its own. The last cars were produced in Perm in 1999. How many Autocams and Rangers were made in total? Science doesn't know for sure. Well, what more can I truly say? It's a remarkably small, incredibly cozy, and wonderfully comfortable little car. Overall, I would genuinely feel quite at ease and perfectly comfortable here, enjoying its intimate atmosphere, if it weren't for the presence of just a few minor, yet noticeable, flaws that slightly detract from the otherwise pleasant experience. I've already mentioned how cramped it is at the shoulders, but the steering shaft, which occasionally rubs against the tip of your shoe, that's odd. The pedals aren't positioned the way they should be, not the way you'd want them to be. But again, these are all just nitpicks from a modern person. Our hearts demand change. Well, we got it, and we've had our fill. But on the other hand, you can't make mistakes if you don't do anything at all. But the Autocam manufacturers tried, they did their best, it just didn't work out. But we're lucky, there's still something to hunt for. And the hunt goes on